Hey everyone, and welcome to a streaming tutorial. I'm going to show you how to get the best performance and the best quality out of your stream. So let's go. What is the best graphics card for streaming? This is talking about PC gaming only. Well, Nvidia is really good because they have something called NVENC as opposed to AMD. AMD graphics cards don't have their own encoder. Most of them don't, and I'm not sure. I'm sure some of them might, some of the newer ones might, but I much prefer Nvidia for streaming because they have their own encoder, and it's a physical section of the Nvidia graphics card that is dedicated to encoding only. This means that your GPU can operate normally regardless of whether you use this region to stream or record. Other encoders such as X264 use your CPU to encode, which takes resources away from other programs such as your game. That's why using NVENC allows you to play games at a higher frame rate and avoid stuttering, giving you and your viewers a better experience. So that's the one great thing about Nvidia. Does AMD have its own encoder? Let's find out. While Nvidia is actively working to attract more streamers to the hardware by officially supporting their own encoder, AMD has kept AMF open source and rely on their community to keep it running. It's better than nothing, and if you have an AMD, you should try AMF to see if it works for you. So, apparently AMD has its own thing called a Advanced Media Framework, which is, as you can see, made by their community. So I kid you not, AMD's encoder, which is not even officially supported by like Streamlabs and OBS, they have their own community-made encoder. They didn't even make their own. So this is why Nvidia is leading the field for streaming, because they have their own encoder. They were, people that are paid and professionals that were hired by Nvidia to develop this encoder, which is a certain section of the graphics card that is going to be dedicated just to streaming. So that is why Nvidia is better. They have two of them. They have two encoders. They have an older one and a newer one. So I guess the first thing on this list is, hey, you should get a Nvidia GPU if you're serious about streaming. AMD is just not going to cut it. Now they have been breaking through with gaming graphics cards, and you still can stream on an AMD GPU 100%, but you're going to be using your processor to do the encoding, and honestly, it just doesn't look as good. I've had an AMD GPU before, and it just does not look anywhere as good as Nvidia, because Nvidia has its own encoder, and it's amazing. So let's talk about what kind of hardware you need. Well, you're going to need a CPU with a high clock speed. Now, as you can see, I'm getting 4.9 gigahertz, which is 4,900 megahertz here, 3.7 gigahertz. It's a very high clock speed. Now, also having a good amount of cores in your CPU is great, but I would say you only really need about 4 or 6 cores for gaming. 10 is overkill for gaming. Now, I have this i9 because I do programming, web development, music, game design. I need a lot of cores because I'll be doing a lot of things at once, like with Photoshop and video editing, but you don't need to be overkill. I would say the best CPU for gaming would probably be something along the lines of an i7. I've always used Intel. They were the first people to make the processor, and I love Intel. I know AMD has some great processors now, and they're very hard to find right now on the market, and they're very overpriced because they're great, right? They have a newer architecture. They have a good bang for their buck as long as you're not getting scalped pricing, and they have a lot of cores. The newer architecture, a lot of cores, and a lot of threads and high clock speeds. They're great processors, don't get me wrong. They're both great processors, but I am always going to use Intel. I think the compatibility with Intel is amazing. I think right now there's no scalped pricing, there's no shortage, and they're great CPUs. But I would say you need an i7 or whatever the equivalent of an Intel i7 is with AMD. That's all you need for gaming. And I would say like I think 8700K, 7700K. You want one of the K series with Intel because those are overclockable, and it's not something that you want to do, but they hold their value better, and in the future you might want to overclock, just experiment. Okay, as far as RAM, same thing. We want a high clock speed on RAM. This is actually 3000 megahertz RAM, but it's showing up as 1600 because this is the value per each RAM stick. So I actually have two 16 gigabyte RAM sticks each at 1599, but together they make 3000 megahertz. I know it shows up weird here. What is this little program I'm using? It's called Speccy. It's free. You can download it. Instead of having to go, another way to do this, to look at your specs, would be DXDiag. Now, DXDiag is going to show you, but it's a little bit messy. As you can see, it's going to give you a lot of information that you don't 100% need. Speccy is a lot cleaner, a lot nicer, shows you temperatures. It's great. Okay, as far as storage, I would recommend 100% NVMe SSD. An NVMe SSD is going to be anywhere from 100 to 300 times faster than a spinning hard disk drive. So if you have an NVMe SSD, your game files, everything is going to load much faster. So good amount of RAM with a high clock speed, a good CPU, most importantly, a good graphics card, 3060, 3070, 3080, 3090, 2080s. All these are going to be great for streaming. Those are going to be more than enough for streaming. You could probably even get away with, streaming on a 1080 Ti or something like that, even though it's a little old. But yeah, any of the new GPUs, which are extremely hard to find, are going to be great for streaming. So 100% Nvidia is just leading the field. All right, let's talk about settings. What kind of settings are we going to need to stream well? Well, Nvidia has been nice enough to compile a extensive guide here on some stream settings. So let's go ahead and go into the settings of, I like Streamlabs OBS because it incorporates a lot of the donations and a lot of the other things in with it. OBS, it's a little bit harder to incorporate, but it's also a great streaming software. So it's just a matter of choice. I prefer Streamlabs OBS, but you can use OBS, and that would work too. So for the encoder, we're going to want to use the NVENC new encoder. Let's talk about rate control. What is this? Well, this has to do with your bitrate. Now, there are a couple options here. There's a VBR, which is variable bitrate, where you can set a range of the bitrate. But this is CBR. This is constant bitrate. So how are we going to calculate what bitrate we need? Well, as you can see, here's the upload speed, and then the bitrate, the resolution, and the frame rate that they want you to use. So how are we going to do that? Well, we're going to go ahead and just type in internet speed test on Google, and just click this blue button here, and it's going to run a speed test. Now, this is the download speed. A lot of people are like, wow, you have really fast internet. Yeah, that's great. But for streaming, the download speed does not matter. So we don't care about this statistic here. We don't care. We don't care that we have a fast download speed. That's great. That's only for downloading stuff. We want a high upload speed, because what is streaming? Streaming is sending your video to other people live. So you want a high upload speed. As you can see, I only have 11 megabytes upload speed. So now we know our upload speed. We can go over here and we can say, okay, I have 11 megabytes upload speed. So that's around the 8 to 10 megabytes range. So what should my bitrate be? 6,000. What should my frame rate be? 60 FPS. What should my resolution be? 1920 x 1080. There's an asterisk here. Important note for high motion content. If you're going to stream high motion scenes, racing games, some battle royale games, we highly recommend reducing your resolution. High motion cannot be compressed as much and can stutter from more artifacting encoding errors that makes your stream look blocky. If you reduce the resolution, you reduce the data being encoded, and the resulting viewer quality is higher. For example, for Fortnite, many streamers try to stream at 1600 x 900. So this is another great little tip here. If you're getting a blocky stream, you want to bring your resolution down. Now, that doesn't mean you have to go all the way to 1280 x 720, but it means that maybe 1600 x 900 may be a better resolution for your stream. So what is the base canvas? What the hell does that mean? And what is that? Well, basically your base canvas is whatever resolution your display is set to on your computer. So as you can see, my native display resolution, which is recommended, is 4K, 3840 x 2160. So you want to set your base canvas resolution to whatever display resolution your computer is using. The output scaled resolution is what you're going to be sending to Twitch, YouTube, whatever you're streaming to. So you want to make sure to get those values right. And like Nvidia said, if you're streaming a game like Call of Duty or a racing game or a very high motion game, you might have a better time streaming at 1600 x 900 at 60 FPS because there's less to compress and it will be less blocky. The downscale filter, you want to use Lankos because Lankos gives the most amount of samples, and it can help because it's sharpening the scaling and it shouldn't look as blocky. If you're streaming high motion content, I highly recommend 60 FPS. It's just going to look more fluid. It's going to look better than 30 FPS. As far as the output, we want our max B frames to be set at 4. Now, I'm just going off of everything that Nvidia has told me. I'm literally just reading this guide straight up. It wants the keyframe interval to be set to 2. Right now I have it on auto, but that should be set to 2. The preset should be quality. So if we go into the preset, it should be quality, and usually there's a preset option right around here, but right now it's not displaying it. I don't know why, but it's just not. Probably because I am recording, so it's not letting me mess with the settings. Psycho visual tuning, that should be checked. Look ahead should be checked. Max B frame should be 4. If you have 2 graphics cards, you can set this to 2. Otherwise, you just leave it at 0. And yeah, I mean that's literally it. There are a lot of other settings that you can mess with, but that has to do with recording, I think. So right now we're looking at streaming settings, which is what we want to do. So yeah, we just copy this basically, and that's exactly what the manufacturer of the encoder recommends as far as settings for it to look good. So I hope this video helped you out. Make sure when you're in game, you want to set your settings. A lot of people maybe turn down their settings so that they can get less lag. I wouldn't recommend doing this. I would recommend using the resolution in game, whatever resolution you're outputting to. So if I'm outputting to on Streamlabs, let's say I'm outputting to, just as an example, 1920 x 1080. If I'm outputting to that, that's what I want my game to be, the resolution of my game, and that way it will look proper because it will be encoding and scaling the resolution from your base canvas resolution to that outputted resolution. So set this resolution to the same resolution in your game. Your resolution in your game, maybe 1920 x 1080. If you're streaming to what Nvidia is recommending, which is, what was it? Nvidia recommended that if you're doing high motion, 1600 x 900 at 60 FPS. Then set your output scaled resolution to 1600 x 900 and set your resolution in your game to 1600 x 900. Let's talk about the recording method. You do not want to use display capture. You want to use game capture. And what that will do is it will capture any full screen application that is running, and that is designed to capture a game. So it is going to be more optimized and it's going to be better. Another thing, the more things you add on your stream, like, you know, the live follow messages and follow this and, you know, alerts, the more you add, the more live stuff you add is going to contribute to your processor load. So if you have, and I mean, it is only like 0.5% of a, you know, as far as me with my i9, it's only like a little fraction of the CPU. But if you have a worse processor, then every little thing you add to your stream is going to add to your computer's load, and it is going to slow down your game if you add too much stuff, if you have a processor that cannot handle it all. So you want to kind of keep it light on that stuff, and don't go too hard with adding all these overlays and all this stuff, because it's going to your computer literally has to pull that data. So it's going to take away from your network, and it's going to take away from your processor. Every little thing counts, you know. You want the highest frame rate, the highest bit rate, you know, the best quality and all that. So I think the secret that we're going to take away from today is told by Nvidia themselves, 1600 x 900. This is probably the best resolution that you can use. I hope this video helped you. If you got any questions, go ahead and leave them down in the comments, or you got any comments, put them down there. Leave a like, subscribe. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope you guys have a great day.